Pt4 marks 100 years since the massacre of up to 1.5 million Armenians by Ottoman Turkish forces during World War I. Yet, a century later, raging controversy still surrounds the commemorations. The European Union, along with other governments, is urging Turkey to use the centennial to acknowledge the events as genocide, a term adamantly denied by Ankara for years. We begin with this report from CCTV's Natalie Carney in Istanbul.
Berken is 18 years old. Most of his life he identified as being Turkish and Muslim.
I would listen to my grandmother when she spoke at home. It wasn't Turkish or Kurdish. My grandfather was the same. So I started to do some research, and that's how I learned that my great-grandfather was a survivor from 1915.
Learning of his Armenian origins was a shock to him, but one he embraced. Today, Berken has chosen to follow the religion of his ancestors and has just celebrated Easter. Like many Armenian survivors of World War I, Berken's great-grandfather was forced to convert to Islam by the Turkish Republic's predecessor, the Ottoman Empire, who was accused of killing upwards of 1.5 million Armenians 100 years ago. A horrific chapter of the First World War, one that many world powers label genocide.
Turkey acknowledges that thousands of Christian Armenians were killed by Ottoman forces during the intercommunal violence of World War I. But it denies that that number could be as high as 1.5 million and that the incident amounts to genocide.
Closely following the Turkish approach to the issue is Professor Cengiz Aktar.
Turkey's official position on the events of 1915 is that they had to deport the Armenians because they were afraid that the Armenians would revolt and enter into intelligence with the enemy, and i.e. Russia. And during the deportation, some unpleasant events happened. And unfortunately, it's far from being enough to convince anyone in the world that it was not a genocide.
The capital, Ankara, has even convicted some people under Article 301, a controversial article of the Turkish Penal Code, making it illegal to insult Turkey by using the term. Earlier this month, the European Parliament approved a resolution to recognize the Armenian massacre as genocide and urged Turkey to do the same.
According to the Turkish president, the EU's decision is a betrayal of history. The government has accused all politicians that voted in favor of the resolution of feeding on hatred, revenge, and a culture of conflict, and says that this vote could potentially harm relations between Turkey and the EU.
There will be no outcome of this truly political and hostile campaign against Turkey. What can one take from Iraq? Armenians will end up suffering from this. Making the issue political by completely breaking away from history harms Armenians.
In 1987, the European Parliament was the first international body to use the word. Since then, 10 EU countries, including France, Italy, and Sweden, have done so. Germany is set to discuss the issue this week, with the government supporting a resolution to declare the massacre an example of genocide. And now, the Turkish government is accused of trying to minimize the centennial commemorations by purposefully scheduling an annual event known as Anzac Day, marking the 1915 naval attack upon the Dardanelles Strait, to a day earlier, the same day as the Armenian massacre commemorative events.
The Anzac Day, I repeat, is the 25th of April. But the government, of course, has advanced the date to make sure that the world will talk about the Dardanelles battle on the 24th of April, which is an extremely important date for Armenians.
Yet, some argue in the past several years, the Turkish government has been softening its position. Ankara says it, quote, shares the pain, end quote, of the Armenians who lost relatives. But a century later, and many of the some 100,000 who live in the country still feel a need for reconciliation.
We're not asking for major compensation for what happened. We just want them to admit it. We haven't disappeared, we are here. The trace of our ancestors is here. And the cemeteries, too. Although we've been assimilated and we don't speak our own language anymore, we are very present.
Last year, Erdogan extended condolences to the grandchildren of those Armenians killed, and there was hopes of an Armenian-Turkish relations thaw. This year, sadly, many of those hopes have been dashed. Natalie Carney for CCTV in Istanbul.